Hey, what's up? It's Scott Canyon. So, what I want to talk about today is this experience I've been having lately of listening to music has been a lot less enjoyable than I would like it to be. And for me, that's really troubling because I really identify as somebody who just loves to listen to music. And I just found, maybe you've had some of the same thing, is that I used to have these experiences growing up where there would be songs and bands and artists that would just stay with me. They're the songs and the artists that I still listen to. They're still my favorites. They were pivotal and formative songs and musicians in my life. And it just seems like that's gotten harder and harder to come by. And I know that a lot of people, most of them over the age of 35, will say that that is entirely because the music today sucks. They just don't make songs like they used to. Well, I don't buy that because there is a very predictable pattern of people saying that as soon as they turn 35. People were saying that when the Beatles showed up, when the Stones showed up, when Guns N' Roses showed up. You can't find an artist that, no matter how great we may think they are, people that were over the age of 35 at that time were saying, this sucks. So I just don't buy that. I want to look towards myself and find out, what am I doing that's causing this? And I'll tell you what, over the last few weeks, I've tried out 3 things that have worked really well for me, that have reinvigorated my love of listening to music and have given birth to some new favorites, some new songs and albums that are really going to stay with me, that have become some of my favorites. And I promise you, it's because I did these 3 things differently. So let me tell you what they were. One is do less. And what I mean by that is, it sure seems like most of us have started doing things that put music at the back and the thing that we're doing at the front. And there's very little focus on just listening to the music. So if you've only got so much bandwidth in your brain, only so much brain power that can be spread across so much of your attention span, well, kind of what it felt like was happening for me anyway, and maybe you can relate to this, is that I had started putting music on in the background while I did a bunch of stuff that really required most of my attention. So it's the difference of like if I've got music on while I'm like doing some cognitively intense thing, like, I don't know, if I'm sitting writing something, right? Or if I was having a conversation with somebody while there's a song playing in the background, well, I promise you, I'm not really paying attention to the song, no matter how good it is. And in fact, if I start doing that, then the main thing that's in front of me starts to suffer, right? I just found that I was not investing a lot of attention to the music. So one of the things that I've started doing is one of 2. Is either I've got music going while I'm doing something where my attention can be on that while my body is doing something else, such as going for a run or going for a hike, working out, stuff like that, where there's not a whole lot of attention span required for that activity, and I can still pretty actively listen to the music. But what I would suggest has been even better is setting aside time where listening to the music is the only thing I'm doing, where I've got on a pair of headphones or earbuds or whatever. Sometimes I even turn the lights out and just sit with the music. And even if I only do that for 1 or 2 or 3 songs, it just has this enormous difference in my experience of the music, how much it means to me and how much of it sticks with me. So that's number 1, is do less. Number 2 is listen to less. And I don't mean listen to music less, I mean listen to less music. What I'm saying is that one of the beautiful things about the advent of streaming is that we have access to music all the time, and we can listen to anything, anytime, anywhere. And that is a beautiful thing. Don't think for a second that I would ever go back in time to a time where you had to physically put a thing into a tape player, CD player, whatever, to listen to it. And yet, it has made music more disposable. It has made music, because it's so easily accessed, there's less of an incentive to invest in it and listen to it. There's almost a problem of, you're just overstimulated, man. Your brain is saturated. You're so flooded with new and novel experiences of music that it becomes very difficult to latch onto one thing and focus on it. So I'll tell you what I did is I decided that I would commit to listening to less music. Not listening to music less. I'm still listening to it every chance that I get, right? Every spare moment. But I decided that I would treat it like a purchasing experience where if I had gone out 20 years ago and bought a CD, even if I didn't really like the thing, well, I bought it. So I'm going to listen to it. And two, the streaming wasn't here yet. I mean, what else am I going to listen to? And I'll tell you what, a whole lot of the time, I remember what used to happen is that I would buy the thing and I would listen to it, and maybe it didn't catch on immediately, but I would listen to it again, and then I would listen to it again. And I'll tell you what, not every time, but oftentimes, the thing would grow on me. And maybe it would become my favorite or maybe not, but I would at least come to appreciate it and certainly come to learn a lot from it. So over the last month, what I've done is, and this is pretty hardcore, you don't necessarily have to limit yourself like I've done, but I said for a week, 95% of the time when I listen to music, I'm going to listen to one album just on repeat, just over and over. And I'll tell you something extraordinary happened. Those very first 2 weeks, I picked 2 albums that I had heard before, but even though they were from an artist that I just adore, these 2 albums never really stuck with me. I never really appreciated them. The artist is 9 Inch Nails, and the albums were Hesitation Marks and Year Zero. First week of this experiment, I listened to Hesitation Marks just every day for 7 days in a row. And then the second week, I listened to Year Zero the same way. Whenever I was out walking my dogs or on a hike or whatever. And let me tell you, while I couldn't really get on board with either one of those albums before the experiment, and the first day or two of listening to either one of them, I was wondering, am I going to have to abort this mission because I just don't get it? By the end of the week, and maybe this is just Stockholm Syndrome talking, Hesitation Marks is still not my favorite, but I do love it. And I don't know what was wrong with me that I didn't love it before. And then Year Zero, I gotta tell you, man, I really don't understand why I missed that boat, because now I can't get enough of it. That week is gone. That week is over. I don't have to listen to Year Zero anymore. Yet, every spare chance I get, I'm listening to it mentally and then putting it on and listening to it again. And I'm just borderline obsessed with it, the way that I used to be when I discovered new music 20 years ago when I had to purchase it. And then 3, the other thing that I've gotten back into is learning more about music, learning more about the song or the artist. And one of the things that used to happen when we used to buy music physically is it would come with the liner notes, right, with the lyric sleeve. And man, most of us, we would pick that up, read through it, pore over every detail, and just dig into it. Everything from the photographs of the artist to the font choice of the lyrics to whether or not they did print lyrics. I remember looking at the liner notes of Seal albums, and it was always a very conscious choice of his that he didn't include the lyrics. And in his second album, there was a whole essay inside of the liner notes about why he doesn't do that. Just brilliant. So when I've started doing that is the album that I'm into, that I'm required to listen to this week, I dig into it and I start reading more about it. Maybe I find some interviews from the artist about their process of making the album. Because I'm a musician myself, I like to dig into the compositional choices, and that gives me a whole lot of motivation to sit and listen to the songs and kind of analyze them myself, break them down a little bit, and just start to figure out, gosh, what were the choices that the songwriter made? The composition choices, the production choices. And I know for some people looking behind the scenes like that, whether it's music or movies or whatever, I know for some people that can take the magic away. But for me, it just makes it all the more extraordinary. It makes it even more fascinating and magical of an experience to me to find out the decisions they made and wonder how they did it, why they did it, and if at all possible, through interviews or whatever, find out the story behind it. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you, was my experience over the last few weeks of doing those 3 things, and I wanted to see if maybe they'll help reinvigorate your experience of enjoying music again. That was, I started doing less while I'm listening to music. I started listening to less music, just picking music that I was going to really focus on for a week at a time. And I started learning more about music, really rediscovering the experience of digging into a specific song or album or artist. Anyway, I'd love to hear from you, and if you've got any experiences like that, any tips yourself about things that you've done to keep your experience of music alive. All right, I'm Pat Kenyon. Peace.